mic up? Good morning. Really glad to be here. Respectfully disagree with you, Michael. I think everything is changing. I just came from a very, very large party of 2,500 people in Washington, D.C. over the past 3 days. The third annual ARPA-E Energy Innovation Summit was held. And to get together 2,500 people that literally yesterday afternoon we had to drag them out of the showcase in order to close it down. And to have conversations going on between government, entrepreneurs, investors, strategics, foreign governments around energy at the level that we're seeing says to me that it is changing. And what people were saying is that the same conversation is happening everywhere. It's happening around the country in Chicago, it's happening around the country in Boston, it's happening in Seattle and Portland and South Florida, about that we need as local communities to do something. And we need to continue, as you said, to leverage the resources that we have to move it forward. I think sometimes the setbacks can feel like, I think we're in a flywheel situation, right? That you have to start enough things moving, and if you lose a little momentum, it feels like you're going backwards. But the reality is, I think we are in a position here in the United States to move things forward and to really actually change the game. And it's what we in America have been doing for hundreds of years, right? And Arun Majumdar, who's the director of ARPA-E, gave in his keynote speech on Tuesday morning examples of all the different times in the 20th century, right from the Wright brothers through to Salk, to Edison and Tesla, about all the inventions that have happened that have changed the world, and they were invented here. And I was fortunate in my career at Roman Haas. What Michael didn't mention, I did come into Roman Haas 20 years ago with a PhD in chemistry and moved through finance and marketing and ran a few businesses, and I wasn't very good at holding a job. But in doing that over all that time, I got this wonderful, tremendous experience in building business. And I spent the end of my career in Europe. And I was there during the last election. And we were in the middle of the economic downturn, and everybody was like, the US dollar, it's not worth anything. And we were all angsting in the US. And in Europe, I meet all kinds of people. I ran the coatings business. And people would be like, the US will come back, the US needs to innovate, that's where innovation will happen. And the rest of the world believes that about us. And I think sometimes we end up in this piece where we doubt that. But I think the way that we do innovate, the quality of universities, and the way we can partner public and privately is unique. It doesn't happen. And I genuinely heard from people who didn't have to say it, that we believe that that will happen. And I think we have to say now, how do we overcome a lot of the obstacles we have with that same can-do-ness that we've had for so long? And I do think it's a flywheel, and that we have to keep spinning it in order to go to a whole different place. And so with that little bit of an interlude, I just wanted to talk about 3 things today, because I really want to hear what you all have to say about your business plans. I'm very, very excited to be here. I haven't really slept in about 6 days. So if I wander around in my comments, somebody just like wave and say like, come back, But I wanted to talk a little bit about ARPA-E and what we're doing at the DOE, how we fit into DOE, because certainly DOE's got a lot of things going on, and very, very supportive. And as you've already mentioned, the business plan grant, as well as the original grant, starting the work that you're doing here. And how it fits, ARPA-E fits into all of that. And a little bit why I came to ARPA-E, because I think it's part of the story. And then I want to link to what about Clean Energy Trust and what you're doing here, and how on knowledge and networks, why is that important for where we're going? ARPA-E was founded in 2007, coming off of the Gathering Storm Report. It was identified that there was a need for an organization modeled off of ARPA, focused on energy, that would do high-impact projects focused on energy and fund them with the focus towards the marketplace. A lot of things about the DARPA model were adopted. We have hiring authority, we can bring people in, but they can only stay for 3 years, so that tends to reduce the bureaucratic drag, right? If you're only there, I've been there for 6 months, so I'm 1/6 of the way done with whatever I'm going to get done. And so you have to look yourself in the face and say, am I getting done what I need? And so you tend to say, no, I don't have time for the other stuff. We bring in program directors very focused on energy matters, and we run, our funding's in the range of $200 to $300 million right now. We were not funded, though, until 2007 as part of the Recovery Act. President Obama funded us $400 million, and we're now an ongoing, I guess ongoing, anything's ongoing in government, budget item. But we've funded about 180 projects so far to the tune of about $500 million. And we have funded, and we originally started with an open FOA, and we have another one that we announced last night will open tomorrow, where we'll take any idea in energy and look at it through the lens of what makes an ARPA-E project. And so we talked quite a bit in the past few days what makes an ARPA-E project. And it's 4 things. It's impact. ARPA-E never asks first, will it work? We ask, if it works, will it matter? And if the answer to that question is no, then we can't fund it. It's a very, very simple first screen, because we need to have it, we're not afraid of the failure. We actually expect that some of these ideas will be dead ends that need to be stopped, and we have the authority to actually stop them and repurpose the money to other things. And then once you've gotten past that question, will it transform? And we look at transform, it's always a difficult thing to get your arms around, but we think about it as when you have learning curves, when you're driving down a learning curve, every industry, every piece of an industry drives down a learning curve. As you bring things on and you automate them, you run them more, you get to scale, you learn more, you drive down the cost, and you tend to drive the adoption. With ARPA-E, we know that a lot of things we might be thinking about might start higher, but we ask right from the get-go, are you going to be able to drive to a point that will be transformational? Will it cross below? And so we use that. Is it science that's not been done before? Is nobody else working on it? Is it going to be an additional impact? We look at it in terms of teams. Are we bringing together teams of people who are engineers, physicists, biologists, really pushing the edge of who looks at energy? And I think a lot of you have that view as well. You can bring in people who have not been thinking about energy and have eyes to a problem that can bring in new solutions. And the last piece is whether it's able to bridge. We're bridging between science and technology, right? We're not going back and inventing the fundamental precepts about some of these areas. We're taking demonstrated, maybe recently demonstrated scientific principles and trying to move them forward. And so those are really our 4 bars if we look at projects. But then the other unique thing that we do, and it's the reason I came to ARPA-E, is we're very, very focused on the market. We're really looking to go beyond what I would call traditional tech transfer. And I think we've all struggled. Every one of us who's ever tried to license something out of a university, out of a national lab, how do you get that process to work well? And it's difficult, I think, because the inventor themselves often, it's not their mandate to be market focused. They're in their field inventing. It's often not the tech transfer office's job to be looking at the market. Now, I think the conversation is changing, but ARPA-E tries to insert from the very beginning of the project the idea that we are going to be market focused. And that's the group that I came in to develop and lead, is technology to market. And it's a long time to market, right? In energy, it can be 10 to 20 years till something's fully adopted. But I run the coatings business. I mean, it's 5 years to get a new coating out there. It's like watching paint dry, literally, right? But you do, right? Nobody wants to buy your paint and put it on their building and see it crack, so you have to go and do all kinds of experiments before you can get it out in the field and people believe it. And energy has a longer time frame than that. So if someone tells me, and hopefully none of you are going to say this today, that we can have this to market in 6 months. So unless you've got it like at the factory door, I would probably press on that as being valid. It takes a while, and how do you engage the market is a really important question. But I came to the DOE 6 months ago. Secretary Chu called me and asked me to come. And I had never thought about government, but he said, we need to be market focused. We need to bring business thinking to the fore. And you can come in and hire a team and think about the markets. And I thought about the idea that to have a starting company like this, a startup inside government like this, and be able to put another startup inside of it was an intriguing proposition. And so I've come in, and we've actually gone and looked at energy at its very market fundamentals. We've actually carved up batteries, software for the grid, wind turbine motors, engine motors, electric distribution systems, what you need, infrastructure, because you can't actually move a technology to the marketplace without the market. And that's where I think what you all are doing here is really important. You're getting the business people together with the technology community, right? If you don't understand the value chain, does the industry work? Is it consolidated industry? So is the supply chain that feeds the automotive industry going to allow new entrants to exist as small to medium companies or not? Is the industry tend to be very acquisitive of technology or not? Who are the players? Who are the early adopters? How does that partnership work? You're going to spin your wheels, right? If it's a consolidated industry and you're talking to Volvo and you're talking to Ford supply chain, then you might be in two different places. And so to be really market focused, I think is a really important thing. And that's what drove me to come to the DOE, was the idea that we could bring business market thinking to this. And then, as I've been in for 6 months, going out into the local community all over the country, what I've realized, if I could just have the slide, the only slide I have, is that the ARPA-E story, this is our performers and our actual members of the ARPA-E community, it is the American story. ARPA-E is focused on moving technology to the market by putting teams of people together to make that invention reality. And it's what I meet people all over the country trying to do, is to develop the knowledge around the science, to bring together the people and the community to support it. Because the reality is you need to understand the language of business. You need to have people who want to be the entrepreneur. You have to have the test beds. You have to have the incubators. You have to have the legal support, the IP support, right? You start to build these concentric circles around. And that's, to the vision of the Clean Energy Trust here. It's what you all have been trying to do. And so it's happening in Chicago. It's happening in Boston. It's happened along the legacy of the Silicon Valley area. It's happening in the Pacific Northwest and Florida and Texas. These communities are forming, recognizing what it is they do well, I think, is when they succeed the best. What are the assets that you have and how do you best leverage them? I don't think we can be everything to everyone. And what I think the government can do is to support efforts like this so that you can build the networks, you can have business plan competitions to build the knowledge and the experience. Anytime you get a chance to give your elevator pitch, give it. Anytime you get a chance to talk about your company, talk about it. But the reality is, we also need to interconnect around the country. The government, the federal government sits in Washington, and we can light a very short fuse on this. But my hope, and I think the hope of all of DOE, and it's why it was really important to me to be here today, is to tell you that the fuse lights, the flywheel flies, because of what you all do and the commitment that you have together to make what works in this community happen, and hopefully to become companies that can touch more of the United States, more of the world. But it really does start with what you bring together here. And I don't think that we should ever discount the power of those local communities. And so that's why for me, to be able to touch that and encourage that and to act as somewhat a connector, Arun refers to us as putting the connective tissue together. I'm not sure I like that image so much because I feel sort of like the tendons in the skeleton or something. But it is true, right? That we can connect, we can help point out, we can feed that broader community. But the reality is everything about the success of this happens on the ground. It's going to happen in the universities, in the small businesses, in the financial institutions, in the local communities. And that's what's exciting about it. It's what was exciting to me when I was at the summit over the past few days, is to see that many people forming a community. People were telling me they met folks that they didn't realize were in their same city doing things. They met somebody, in another city doing exactly the same thing, and they were going to follow up with them. They talked to somebody in another country who had a great test bed opportunity. And so there's a great story being painted, and I think we should never, ever be discouraged by that feeling that there is some pullback as we think about it as the momentum of the flywheel. And if it slows down, just like on a train, you feel like maybe you're going backwards a little bit, but you're really not. And I think the time is right here in the United States. There's a critical conversation going on around energy security, economic security, and environmental security. That must happen. That must happen for the future. And it will get driven certainly better with $5 gas or whatever we get. You know, there'll be more common support. But those of you who are here trying to move these businesses forward, you know, remember that the support around you is there to support you no matter what's going on, the ups and downs. And from ARPA-E's perspective and all of DOA's perspective, we salute you and your efforts and hope we can continue to support those efforts. So thank you very much.